Hello fifth graders and happy Thursday. Today we're going to talk about how to subtract unlike fractions. We're going to use the same skills we used on Tuesday to add unlike fractions. I know you're going to do a great job, and so does Mr. Smiles. Let's dive right in. Let's start with number 1. Draw a model of 4/5. Go ahead and draw a model of 4/5 on your paper now. Take a look at your model. How many total pieces did you cut the shape into? You cut the shape into 5 pieces because the denominator is 5. How many pieces did you shade in? You shaded in 4 because the numerator is 4. You've drawn a model of 4/5. Now let's use our model to fill in the blank. 4/5 equals blank over 20. First, I need to decide how many times as many pieces did I cut my model into. 5 times what is 20? 5 times 4 is 20. So I cut my model into 4 times as many pieces. If I multiply the denominator by 4, I also have to multiply the numerator by 4 to create an equivalent fraction. What's 4 times 4? It's 16. 4 over 5 is equal to 16 over 20. Now let's look at number 3. Select all of the fractions that are equivalent to 1/3. Hint, simplify every answer choice. Let's look at answer choice A. Is 3/6 in simplest form? No. 3 and 6 can both be divided by the same number. What's the largest number that goes into both 3 and 6? It's 3. When I divide my numerator and my denominator by 3, what's my new fraction in simplest form? It's 1/2. So is A a correct answer? No. Slash it. Let's look at B. Is 2/6 in simplest form? No. What's the largest number that goes into both 2 and 6? It's 2. So when I divide 2 and 6 both by 2, what's my new fraction? It's 1/3. Is B a correct answer? Yes. Let's look at C. Is C written in simplest form? No. What's the largest number that goes into both 4 and 10? It's 2. When I simplify 4/10 by dividing 4 and 10 by 2, what's my new fraction? It's 2/5. Is C a correct answer? No. Slash it. Take a look at D. 5/15. Is that in simplest form? No, it's not. What's the largest number that goes into both 5 and 15? It's 5. When I divide both 5 and 15 by 5, what's my new fraction? It's 1/3. Is D a correct answer? Yes. Now let's take a look at E. Is 6 over 18 written in simplest form? No. What's the largest number that goes into both 6 and 18? It's 6. When I divide both 6 and 18 by 6, what's my new fraction? It's 1/3. Is E a correct answer? Yes. Now let's look at F. 10 over 15. It's not in simplest form. What's the largest number that goes into both? It's 5. When I divide both 10 and 15 by 5, what's my new fraction? It's 2/3. Is F a correct answer? No. So the correct answers to this question are B, D, and E. Now let's convert 3 and 2/3 into an improper fraction. Remember, to convert into an improper fraction, I can multiply my whole number times the denominator, 3 groups of 3, add 2, and then leave my denominator the same. What's 3 times 3? It's 9. Plus 2 more? 11. What's my denominator? It's 3. 3 and 2/3 is equal to 11 over 3. Convert 15 over 4 into a mixed number. What operation do I use to convert an improper fraction into a mixed number? I divide. I need to divide my numerator, 15, by my denominator, 4. How many times does 4 go into 15? 4 goes into 15 3 times. What's 3 times 4? It's 12. What's the remainder? It's 3. Now I can write that as a mixed number. I have 3 wholes with 3 out of 4 left over. 15 over 4 is the same as 3 3/4. Now you try one. Write 12 over 5 as a mixed number. When 12 over 5 is written as a mixed number, the answer is 2 2/5. Now let's simplify 3 fractions. What's the greatest number that goes into 3 and 6? It's 3. When I divide both by 3, what's the simplified fraction? It's 1/2. What's the greatest number that goes into both 4 and 8? It's 4. 2 would work, but then I'd have to simplify again. What is the simplified fraction for 4/8? It's 1/2. What's the greatest number that goes into both 12 and 20? It's 4. When I simplify, what's the result? It's 3/5. Now let's practice our multiplication tables. Go ahead and fill in your multiples of 2 now. Check to make sure your multiples look like mine. Go ahead and fill in your multiples of 3 now. Check to make sure your multiples look like mine. Go ahead and fill in your multiples of 4 now. Check to make sure your multiples look like mine. Go ahead and fill in the multiples of 5 now. Check to make sure your multiples match mine. Go ahead and fill in the multiples of 6 now. Check to make sure your multiples look like mine. Go ahead and fill out the multiples of 7. Check to make sure your multiples look like mine. Go ahead and do the multiples of 8. Check to make sure your multiples match mine. Fill in the multiples of 9. Check to make sure your multiples match mine. You've done a great job on the Do Now and Fluency. Now let's jump into our lesson. Today we are going to subtract unlike fractions. Write that down as our aim at the top of the page. Let's start by looking at an example together. Malik is running in a race with the running club. He wants to run 7/8 of a mile. He has already run 1/4 of a mile. How much farther does Malik have to run? First, what operation would you use to solve this problem? This is a subtraction problem. I know how far Malik wants to run. I know how far he's already run. And I'm comparing them to find a difference. When I compare to find a difference, that means I'm using subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 7/8, the larger fraction, minus 1/4. Can I subtract these fractions like they are? No, they don't have the same denominator. So the first thing I need to do is find the least common denominator. Go ahead and list the multiples of 4 and the multiples of 8 and circle the smallest number on each list. The smallest number that's a multiple of both 4 and 8 is 8. So the least common denominator is 8. Now I can change each fraction so that the denominator is 8. 7 over 8 already has a denominator of 8, but 1/4 does not. How can I multiply 4 to get to 8? 4 times what is 8? 4 times 2 is 8, so I need to multiply my numerator times 2 as well. What's 1 times 2? It's 2, so 1/4 is equal to 2/8. So 7/8 minus 1/4 is the same as 7/8 minus 2/8. What's 7/8 minus 2/8? What's 7/8 minus 2/8? It's 5/8. Why did we need to have the same denominator to be able to subtract the fractions? Go ahead and type your answer to that question now. Denominators have to be the same to add or subtract fractions because we can only add or subtract if the pieces are the same size. So look at letter E. The answer to this question is 5/8. Malik has 5/8 miles left to run. There are certain steps that we can take every time to subtract fractions that don't have the same denominator. Fractions can only be added if they have the same denominator, because the pieces have to be the same size. That also goes for subtraction. Make sure you've written same on both of the first two lines. To add or subtract fractions with unlike denominators, first find the least common denominator. Then change each fraction to an equivalent fraction with the LCD as the denominator. Subtract the numerators. The denominator stays the same. Because we don't change the number of pieces each whole is cut into. Don't forget to change any improper fractions into mixed numbers, and always simplify fractions. Take a moment to make sure that you have all of your notes down. Now let's do two more examples together before you try one on your own. 4/5 minus 2/3. First, we need to find the least common denominator. List the multiples of 3 and 5 and find the smallest number on both lists. 15 is the least common denominator. It's the smallest number on both lists. Now we need to change each fraction so that its denominator is 15. There's a typo on your paper. Where it says 1/5, go ahead and change that to 4/5. Now let's change 4/5 so that its denominator is 15. First, I need to figure out what I multiplied by. 5 times what is 15? 5 times 3 is 15, so I have to multiply 4 times 3 as well. What's 4 times 3? It's 12, so 4/5 is equal to 12 over 15. Now I have to change 2/3 so that the denominator is 15. 3 times what is 15? 5. Now I have to multiply 2 by 5 as well to make sure I'm creating an equivalent fraction. What's 2 times 5? It's 10. So I can subtract my new fractions, 12 over 15 minus 10 over 15. What's 12 over 15 minus 10 over 15? It's 2 over 15. Now let's do another. 3/4 minus 1/3. First, I need to find the least common denominator. Do that now. List your 4s and your 3s. And circle the smallest number that's on both lists. 12 is the least common denominator. It's the smallest number on both lists. Now we have to convert each fraction to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 12. There's one more typo. Go ahead and change 2/3 so that it says 1/3. Change 3/4 so that the denominator is 12. 3/4 equals what over 12? 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9. So 3/4 is equal to 9/12. Now change 1/3 so that the denominator is 12. What's the new numerator? 1/3 equals blank over 12. 1/3 equals 4 over 12. Now I can subtract my new fractions. 9 over 12 minus 4 over 12. What's 9 over 12 minus 4 over 12? It's 5/12. So 3/4 minus 1/3 is 5/12. Let's answer this question one more time. Why do fractions need to have the same denominator to add or subtract them? Remember, to add or subtract fractions, the denominators have to be the same so that the pieces are the same size. Now you try 4 problems. First, what is 5/8 minus 1/3? What is the least common denominator? The least common denominator is 24. Now convert both fractions so that the denominator is 24. 5/8 equals blank over 24, and 1/3 equals blank over 24. Do that now. 5/8 is equal to 15 over 24, and 1/3 is equal to 8 over 24. Now subtract the new fractions. What's 15 over 24? Minus 8 over 24. It's 7 over 24. The correct answer is 7 over 24. Now try 3 on your own. What's 9/10 minus 3/4? Solve that problem now. The answer is 3 over 20. The least common denominator is 20. 9/10 is 18 over 20, and 3/4 is 15 over 20. When I subtract, I get 3 over 20. Now solve the next one. What's 2/3 minus 1/4? Solve that problem now. The answer is 5/12. The least common denominator is 12. 2/3 is 8/12. 1/4 is 3/12. When I subtract them, I get 5/12. Now try the last problem. What's 3/5 minus 1/4? The correct answer is 7 over 20. The least common denominator is 20. 3/5 is equal to 12 over 20. 1/4 is equal to 5 over 20. When I subtract, I get 7 over 20. You've done a great job on this video. After you've left your comments, go to IXL and log into skill L.9. You can show your work on the next page of your packet.